morning, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Global Business Insights podcast. I'm joined once again by my partner in crime, Charlotte de Brabandt. Hi, Charlotte.
Hi, Max. Great to be back.
Great to have you once again. We had a great episode last time talking about leadership beyond the hierarchy and formal authority, where we sort of got more into the detail about how there's this shift in hyper leadership going on and how leaders themselves need to embrace that. We're on to episode 8 now. This episode, we're going to talk about ethics and responsibility in more technology-driven businesses. So that's going to be an interesting topic for us, and we're going to go further into the hyperleadership issue and the shift within those technology-driven organisations. So I'm going to jump straight into question 1. Charlotte, why have ethics then become such an issue for central leadership today?
Oh, a very good question. Big question. I think altogether it's because technology scales impact faster than our ability can even regulate it. And decisions, they are made by a small groups of leaders, but they can now affect thousands or millions of people almost instantly. So ethics can no longer be delegated to compliance departments. It's really a core leadership responsibility, and one has to recognize the impact that we can create just within seconds. So hyper leadership, it really recognizes that just because something is technically possible doesn't mean it's strategically or morale desirable. And that's really something that we need to keep in mind, the scale of impact we can create in moments.
That highlights, I think, why in a technology business it's even more important, because of just how fast things scale, and things can go from, you know, leading a small team in a startup type environment to leading a massive team with a completely different skill set almost overnight with a technology business if it explodes. So yeah, that makes sense. So if I go to question 2, what in these sort of more AI based or firms that are using AI and digital technologies more, what are the sort of ethical dilemmas that leaders face with those sort of challenges then, do you think?
Well, a lot of bias, transparency, surveillance, and very important accountability. So leaders must act, and the question is who benefits, who is disadvantaged, who is accountable when systems fail, and these questions cannot just be answered by algorithms. So in our notion of hyper leaders, I think hyper leaders actively engage with these dilemmas rather than just postponing them and trying to avoid any sort of accountability.
Okay, so one of the things that I know leaders I've worked with pride themselves on is their ability to make the right decision under pressure in a fast-moving environment. So with the advent of hyper leadership and the advent of these fast-moving technology companies that are really scaling rapidly, how does the leaders in those organizations, when it really is fast-moving, how do they approach those decisions in an ethical way?
I think ultimately by embedding ethics constantly into their decision making from the start. And this actually means defining ethical boundaries early on and, then making them part of strategic discussions and not just afterthoughts. So ethics should guide design choices and not just react to crises.
Okay, and is it the leaders that actually own those ethical outcomes, do you think, once they've made those decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely leadership. And just to elaborate a little bit, their responsibility, it cannot be outsourced to technology vendors or just some legal frameworks that they work with. Hyper leaders, they understand that accountability, it remains within the human. Even in automated systems, they are there to guide maybe certain decisions. The ultimate accountability still lies in us.
So having worked in a fast-paced technology business previously as a leader, a lot of this is resonating with me. And, hyper leadership wasn't something that was around then, but it was certainly something that I practiced by default, just because that's how I've grown up, how I've worked with people. So It's sort of, I think, instinctive in some people if they're kind of younger leaders coming through. But the thing that I always found a struggle was balancing the constant development and innovation that the rapidly growing technology business demanded. I'd balance that with the responsibility of making the right decisions for the people that I was working with that didn't affect them, because the two didn't always align. So I wonder how leaders actually do balance innovation with responsibility in the right way without affecting either way.
A good question. So I think from the beginning, by establishing these clear red lines and consistently encouraging these principled experimentation within them. So constraints don't stifle innovation. They really make it sustainable.
So say that a leader just carries on as they always have done and they ignore ethics completely. What is the cost of doing that? What's the pitfalls?
Well, the biggest one, it's definitely loss of trust. Loss of trust within your team, within the stakeholders, within the company. And once trust is gone, no amount of technological sophistication can compensate for that. And I do see that in real life examples.
Thank you very much for that, Charlotte. That's been brilliant. And again, a really good episode. I think getting into the ethical side of this is really important because, yes, everyone wants to grow fast. Yes, everyone wants to be successful, but we can't do that ignoring how we're making decisions that affect the people that we're leading. So it's a key part of this. Have you got any other final thoughts? I know we always ask just for your final thoughts at the end of each episode. Anything you'd like to add at this stage, Charlotte?
Well, definitely don't underestimate the importance of ethics in business. And it's just important to not ignore it and embrace it.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been a great episode. Once again, delighted to have you on the podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.